Alright you guys, it's your old pal Jizzo here, and we're having a clearance sale on my second and third book, Unhappy Endings and Angst for the Memories. We're now selling these for 25% off right now at jizzypearl.net. So go check them out. I'm slashing the prices. I'm totally nuts. I don't know what I'm doing. 25% off clearance sale at jizzypearl.net. Doom, 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 doom. New York, it's a hell of a town, or to be more precise, you can find hell in the town. There's drugs, there's hookers, there's shenanigans, booze, lots of booze, darkness, good times, lots of cool clubs, lots of good music. You can go where any sane man would never go before. Oh yeah, New York is a cool place to hang out, but you gotta be careful. There's good times and evil. Such was my experience in 1991, where we spent the summer recording our second record, Wasted in America. Fresh off the heels of my Blackout record, we all met with the business executives at Columbia for a luncheon, and we were there to discuss the dreaded sophomore record, Wasted in America. The record company dug the vibe. We were carrying on the tradition of singing about booze and drugs. You know, what could go wrong? But who would produce the record this time? Not Tom Werman. He was through with us, and I guess we were through with him. So I had one of my brilliant ideas. Why not relocate to New York and do the record there? David Kahn, who worked at Columbia Records, was a producer. He was one of the guys that helped sign us in the first place. Why not have him produce the record and we relocate to New York and get a loft similar to what we had in Los Angeles and go live there? Sounds good. Some of the guys in the band weren't really so keen on the idea. In fact, one of the guys said on the eve of our leaving for New York, "This is the worst mistake we've ever made." He would change his mind later on because it's life experience, man. It was carpe diem. It was seize the day. We may never get this chance to go live in New York and do a record again. And true to form, we didn't. So off to the Big Apple. Now in 1991, New York was happening for rock. There was the Limelight Club, the Church, one of the coolest venues ever. There was CBGB's, there was Bond Street, there was the Cat Club, there was Webster Hall. New York was happening for rock, and bars on every corner. The Scrap Bar, right there nestled in Little Italy, probably one of the coolest bars ever. We spent many a drunken night there when we lived in New York, drinking from those magical pitchers of beer that just kept appearing as soon as the previous one ran dry. Good times. Now that is a picture of our New York loft years later. It didn't look like that then. If you want to see what it looked like, go look at the cover of the Wasted in America record. It was an old gay bathhouse called Circus Maximus, and that's where we lived. Picture that old MTV show, The Real World. That's what the loft was like. On the bottom floor was the band rehearsal area. Go up the staircase, that's where the band lived. We had a kitchen, bathrooms, bedrooms, and on the upper deck was the patio where we used to have our parties and late night shenanigans. Real world. It was truly grand. We lived like the band The Monkees, only much darker, more like the hairy baboons. Now my room upstairs was at the end of the hall, and it was completely dark day and night. There was no windows. So the only light that came from my room was from the blinking LED light of the clock radio. So I wouldn't know whether it was 2:40 a.m. or 2:40 p.m. Now I am by nature an early riser, but when I lived in New York then, I changed. I had to change for the New York atmosphere. I mean, we didn't even start to think about going out till after midnight. You stay out drinking until 4 a.m. and the bars close, And then we would break into the bar next door that our landlord owned for more fun and games, drink until about 6, crawl into bed, and then do it all over again the next day. New York in the springtime. There's nothing else like it. That multicultural melting pot of all races, colors, and creeds, compressed in a couple of city blocks. There's no other city like it, and we lived in the thick of it in Greenwich Village in the springtime. It was totally killer. I discovered St. Mark's Place, where they had all the sidewalk booksellers. That's where I found Charles Bukowski. His drunken teachings fit in with my drunken teachings. He was like a drunken Shakespeare, drunken kung fu. He was a total wise man until he had a few drinks, and then he became a total idiot, just like me. Now, the next block over was a solid street of Indian restaurants. I'd never had Indian food before, so I jumped in head first. They all had names like the Great Brahmin, or Vishnu's Revenge, or the Terrible Vindaloo. I jumped in head first. I didn't realize the pain that I would experience every morning. It was Indian food at night, colonoscopy in the morning. The whole loft smelled like patchouli. It was amazing. Now, our nights out usually went something like this. Okay, Saigon Kick is playing the Cat Club, so we go off to see Saigon Kick. And after that, to the scrap bar for drinks and shenanigans. The next night, Liquid Jesus is playing CBGB's. So if we go to CBGB's, hang out with Joey Ramone, drinks at the scrap bar, and then more shenanigans. Shenanigans every night. Now in 1991, we were still minor celebrities, you got to understand. We had made a record, we had been touring, we were on MTV. So when we got to New York and started hanging out in the bars, we were sort of given the keys to the kingdom. Free beer, free women, all access to darkness, and all things going on. See, that was the scene. Every week, some new touring band would come into town. Lord Tracy, Salty Dog, and we were part of that fraternity. We were a touring band. It was like being in the NFL, you know what I mean? We were one of the teams. Now, the Limelight had this VIP club upstairs that we used to hang out. And we would hold court there, hanging out with the local bands and drinking all night, more shenanigans. One night, Tattoo Rodeo came upstairs, and I monologued those guys for 2 hours about all the do's and don'ts of the rock business. So if you can imagine. Now, what you gotta do is don't let the record companies f*** you over. Because they're gonna f*** you over. So you can't let them. Can you imagine how fun that was for them? Now, we were embraced by the local community. We used to host parties and barbecues up on our loft. And when the local rock guys would come to our loft, you could tell that they were a little bit jealous. I mean, why wouldn't they be? This was the hammer of the gods. This was what they dreamed of, and it was in their face. The record deal, the splendor of the loft. They didn't know that every single hot dog given had a price tag, that every pepperoni on every pizza had a little barcode that we were supposed to pay back. Nothing is free with the record company. Nothing is free. Nothing is given. The record company giveth, and the record company taketh away.
Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell them, silent free these people!
Now, when we first went to New York, and we sort of settled into the loft, we started to record new songs that actually would make the Wasted in America record. One of them was Yucca Man. We recorded that one in New York. We also recorded the song Miss America. Now, when I first heard that song, Miss America, I thought, now this is a song that might make it on rock radio. You had to think that way after a while in the music business. You had to think, where's the song that's going to be on the radio? Where's the rock ballad? We never thought like that on the Blackout record. We just did what we did because rock radio at that time was the primary source of selling records. And if you had a song on the radio, that meant that you could maybe sell records and you would have people at your gig. I thought that Miss America could have been that song. I actually campaigned hard to make Miss America our first single, but the label had other ideas. The label thought that we shouldn't lose our edge. They thought that we should stay hard. They thought Miss America was a little too pop. That's why they went with the song Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a good song, I mean, in retrospect, but it's a little weird. It would definitely not be my choice for the first single on the record. But the label insisted, people in the label decided for us, and that was our first single. And when it went to rock radio, it tanked. It tanked. And this is the thing about being on a major label. When they make a decision on your behalf and it bombs, all of a sudden it's your fault. It's your fault. You shouldn't have written that song. People got fired at the label because they supported us and they supported that song. That's how it works out. It wasn't our fault. You picked it. But because you wrote it, it's our fault. See? You see, everyone thinks you're great and everyone thinks you're a genius until you're not selling records. And when you're not selling records, then you're a chump. You're a freeloader because it's the music business. Bottom line, it's a fucking business. And if you don't sell records, what good are you? You see, our band was always a divergent collection of songs. And that's the way we were. That was our strength, and I guess it was our weakness. Because being different doesn't always work in this two-dimensional world where you either have to be like Guns N' Roses or you have to be like Jane's Addiction. You can't be both.
What you talking about, Willis?
So, pre-production, we had John Jansen as our producer, who the label had set us up with. So all of us spent a few weeks in our downtown rehearsal area and we just drilled the songs for weeks and weeks. 3 hours a day, 6 hours a day. We just drilled the songs over and over and over because we thought we were going to record it live. And it was pretty tough, man. Spring became summer and it started to get hot down there. So what we did was we invested in a large industrial air conditioner that we put in the window. It was facing the stairway going downstairs to our rehearsal area. Now this thing was, like I said, industrial. It was about 4 times the size of what a regular air conditioner looks like. So it would cool the whole loft. Anyway, so we're rehearsing one day and Skid is playing right next to the stairway. And it's really loud and we can't hear anything. And he's just playing away and I'm singing. And then for some reason, he walks a few feet over to one side. I don't know why, but at that moment, the air conditioner fell out of the window and it came down the stairs at blinding speed. And I watched this huge air conditioner, about the size of a pyramid block, bust past Skid going about 30 miles an hour. Now, if that would have hit him, it would have been crippling. Crippling. It would have been the end of our New York experience. He could have died. Seriously, it would have been like getting hit by a car. Once again, the rock gods intervene. Now, my only regret is that we did not record the record at Electric Lady Studios, which was in Washington Square in the Village. It was right down the street to where we lived. We should have done that, but we didn't. We thought that we were going to cut the record live as a band, and we ended up not doing that. So we ended up going to the power station to record the record, which was sort of businesslike and kind of sterile and lame. So we set about recording the Wasted in America record. I would take a taxi downtown to the power station in the morning and I would do my vocals, I'd finish, and then the other guys would take a taxi in the afternoon and we would pass each other for guitars and overdubs and stuff like that. Now the Wasted in America record, in retrospect, is a great record. It really is. A musical progression, I guess you could call it. But I just remember it not being as fun as the Blackout record. It was more like work. The Blackout record, we still had all our dreams intact. I was dreaming of multi-platinum success and living in a mansion of gold. And by the second record, reality had set in. Now, none of us knew that just over the horizon, poised, was a new thing coming, was a new brand of rock brewing. I had heard A Temple of the Dog. Skid had the cassette, and it sounded great. But then you start to hear about this band called Nirvana. You know, word of mouth. Have you heard about that band Nirvana? No. You got to check them out. Have you heard Nirvana? No. You would never think in a million years that this music would spell the doom for your music. You would never think that. All of a sudden, being a Sunset Strip band would be overnight uncool. Long hair, uncool. Leather pants, uncool. Like a lightning strike, like the changing of the guard, the new replacing the old. Only we were the old, and I was only 32.
Wake up. Time to die.
Okay, now flash forward. The city has changed. The village has changed. No more rock clubs there. They're all organic wine bars. In 2010, I decided to go back to the old loft and see what it was like. So I took a taxi and we went down there, and the building looked pretty much as you see it in that picture. It was all boarded up and bricked up, but it was open. It was some sort of weird store. And I walked in there and some guy was working there, and I'm looking around, and it was really dark and dingy. And I go, you know what? It's weird, dude. I used to live here. Think of it. There's no more scrap bar. There's no more CBGBs. There's no more Limelight. There's no more trash and vaudeville. That's gone too. It's probably a Jamba Juice now. It was a moment in time, and now it's gone. I remember when I lived in New York, and I was passing a Tower Records at midnight, and I saw a line around the block. People were waiting in line for the new GNR record, Use Your Illusion. Can you imagine? People gave that much of a shit about new music that they would stand in line at midnight. It's not like now. People don't care about new music anymore. It comes and goes like a fart in the wind. Music used to be crucial. It was like your left arm. You needed it. You really needed it. Not like now. But you know what? We, the old centurions of rock, we're still playing the hits. We're still plugging in our guitars and playing. We still give a shit about being good and staying good, because at the end of the day, that's all you have. You're only as good as your last gig. Remember that. Remember that. It's your old pal Jizzo, rockin' and rollin', and we'll see you next time.